Has contributed to society. So this is called Black Invention. I hope you enjoy it as much as I enjoy doing it. Nowadays when you mention science or an invention, many people just feel that it came from the white man. Oh no, they feel that is whites only created technology and all them machines that we just use daily. But what the damn fools don't know, blacks created things also. But in books today, black people works they go show. Oh yes, children, biology, science and their chemistry is only white scientists they see. But tell them who built the first clock, it was Banneker, a black man. G.D. Sampson started the clothes dryer, a black man. Today when you watch that electric light, a black named Latimer D. Forsyth to use carbon to make bulbs turn bright. A black man invented that light. A black man invented that. George Washington Carver revolutionized agriculture to produce more food for America. Oh yes, and in 1862, a common slave, I'm telling you, invented the propeller for the ship's crew. Henry Jones with his black locks to transport food in trains and trucks. He brought in the system of air conditioning. Oh yes, 1836, brother, a common slave, Henry Blair, gave the world what we call the corn harvester. And tell them the first successful heart operation, a black man. Daniel Williams, the egg beater by W. Johnson, an ex-black man. Elijah McCoy for lawn sprinklers. And today in all the machines and cars, he made cylinder lubricators. A black man invented. He pump in your car. A black man invented that. When Granville Woods made his draft, the white folks began to laugh until he invented the railway telegraph. Oh yes, J.A. Burr, a black farmer, 1899, as a thinker, gave the world the celebrated lawnmower. Yes, Percy Julian hit the scene when he took a little soybean and made a cure for arthritis the world had never seen. Oh yes, so my friends, please understand that many inventions, they were made by the hands of many a black man. You want more? Riding saddles made out of leather. 1878, the fire escape ladder. science bigger. And if I only mention them Egyptian, you'll see that all them things claimed by modern man is a black man invented. Now if you join the chorus, we could do this some more inventions. Sing with the chorus. A black man invented mathematics. A black man invented cosmetics. A black man invented architecture. A black man invented the steel band. A black man invented writing shorthand. A black man invented medicine. A black man invented alcohol. A black man invented the subway. A black man invented the traffic light. A black man invented medicine. A black man invented the reggae. A black man invented jazz and bongo. A black man invented calypso. A black the works they go show. Oh yes, children, biology, science and their chemistry is only white scientists they see. But tell them who built the first block, it was Banneker, a black man. G.D. Sampson started the clothes dryer, a black man. Today when you watch that electric light, a black named Latimer had the foresight to use carbon to make bulbs burn bright. A black man invented that light. A black man invented that. George Washington cover revolutionized agriculture to produce more food for America. Oh yes. And in 1862, a common slave, I'm telling you, invented the propeller for the ship's crew. Henry Jones with his black locks to transport food in trains and trucks. He brought in the system of air conditioning. Oh yes, 1836, brother, a common slave, Henry Blair, gave the world what we call the corn harvester. And tell them the first successful heart operation, a black man. Daniel Williams, the egg beater by W. Johnson, an ex-black man. Elijah McCoy for lawn sprinklers. And today in all the machines and cars, he made cylinder lubricators. A black man invented. He pump in your car. A black man invented that. When Granville Woods made his draft, the white folks began to laugh until he invented the railway telegraph. Oh yes, J.A. Pearl, a black farmer, 1899, as a thinker, gave the world the celebrated lawnmower. Yes, Percy Julian hit the scene when he took a little soybean and made a cure for arthritis the world had never seen. Oh yes, so my friends, please understand that many inventions, they were made by the hands of many a black man. You want more? Riding saddles made out of leather. 1878, the fire escape ladder. Black man. This from Africa, that science bigger. And if I only mention them Egyptian, you'll see that all them things claimed by modern man is a black man invented. Now if you join the chorus, we could do this some more inventions. Sing with the chorus. A black man invented mathematics. A black man invented cosmetics. A black man invented architecture. A black man invented the steel band. A black man invented writing shorthand. A black man invented medicine. A black man invented alcohol. A black man invented man invented that. The traffic light, a black man invented that. Medicine, a black man invented that. The reggae, a black man invented that. Jazz and bongo, a black man invented that. Calypso, a black man invented that.
Oh yes, a black man invented that. I may be one of 10, maybe 10 of we, maybe 10 of we, maybe 10 of we who not afraid to say that. Here, I just take pleasure in poking the black finger in the eye. And I love it. I earned the right to do it. Tonight we're going to rock. I have on board tonight a brother. I said 10, and he's one of the 10 who would say a black man invented that. I like to poke me a black finger in the eye because I'm black, proud, beautiful. Perhaps you see there's a core of Indianists. That's Indian elite. I'm not talking about Indian people. I'm not talking about Indian people. The Indian masses. Indian elite. Some of them in business, some of them in politics, some of them in culture. They have a grand plan for Guyana. There was always an Indian elite grand plan. You know, they wanted at some point the Indian elite to turn Guyana into an Indian colony. That elite, not the Indian people, that elite is at work. They're seeing an opportunity that was lost back then, now with our oil money, to use that oil money to turn Guyana into an Indian colony. And if you have a colony, you got to colonize somebody. And the colonization of the African takes the same playbook. That is to use them as commodity, as they did our foreparents. Try to turn human beings into commodity. And we are seeing it today. And you know what? They call people like me. I read some, they said people like me preventing Indians from voting for the APNU because when Indians hear my racism, they get frightened. Oh God, me vote. David Hines go kill me. And why is the racism? They're talking plain chop dust song. If I have anything to do with education, every black child, every Indian child, every Amerindian child, every Portuguese, Chinese, and European child will learn the history of all 6 of our ethnic groups. They will learn the history of the Caribbean. They will learn the same racism that they're accusing me of, which is to say, black people are people, they invented things. And so they try to demonize the teaching of black history. Unfortunately, the black elite fall for it. They are afraid. They know better, but they're afraid. And the black elite in the Caribbean has always been flaky. On the one hand, they think they're better than the black masses. All right? And the Indianists know that. So they play on them. Don't hang out with David Hines. Don't hang out with Jonathan Adams. They're extremists. Well, if I'm extremist of black people, I plead guilty. If I'm extremist of black justice and black equality, I plead guilty. Never will I one day preach black superiority. I don't believe in it. I don't believe black people superior to other races. But I do believe black people are equal. And we have to talk about black equality because there was 400 years plus of systematic black inequality. You see, Indian people don't have to sing a song to say it's an Indian invented that. Because Indians were never commodities. Their peopleness, their humanness, their ability to invent things was never questioned. The reason we Africans have to say it is because our ability to create things was questioned for 400 years. So we are constantly in the process of repairing. And there's a word that comes from repairing: reparations. People think when you talk about reparations, you talk about the money. Cultural reparations, mental reparations. Bob Marley, who's a student of Marcus Messiah Garvey, who at Menelik Hall in 1840, I think, or 1838, said to the people there in Menelik Hall in Nova Scotia, Canada, Marcus Messiah Garvey, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but yourself can free your mind. Bob Marley took it and put it in song. So we credit Bob Marley with it. We are constantly reclaiming that which they took away systematically, and it became a culture to doubt it. So white man don't have to say is a white man invented that, because white people write the narrative of invention. They start history with the Greek civilization. And we have to tell them, well, everything the Greek learned, they learned that from Africans, the Egyptians. But anyhow, I just want to let you all know, tonight we're on, Jonathan Adams is on tonight. He is an Africanist. He is a dramatist. He's a historian. You know, my students always ask me the thing, Dr. Hines, why you go in a political science, black political science class, and the professor talking about political science, and then he started talking about John Coltrane. And then he came from that and he started talking about Miles Davis. Why you all always politics, psychology? And I tell them that we have always had to operate at various levels at the same time. One of my heroes, Rex Nettleford, says it's chaos in order and order in chaos. And only we can do that because we had to fight to free ourselves while surviving. The mighty Sparrow said, every time I try to get away, I see the dogs and them and the whip. And I say, I'm staying, but I'm planning still to make a brilliant escape. Not just an escape, a brilliant escape. You see, they don't want us to talk about these things. And how I love to talk about it. Poke my finger in the eye. Poke, because I could. Earn the stripes, and I earned the right to do it. Proud black man. Proud black man. Teach black people to be proud and black. Walk Guyana with your chest in the air. Who like it? Like it. Who don't like it? Lump it. If they want to call black empowerment racist, it's their ignorance. Their ignorance. Nami, I am free. Free. Old people say free like a bird. Poke me eye in there. Poke me black finger in the eye. And they can't do me nothing. They can't do me nothing because I'm a strong black man. They don't owe me a job. I don't want the job. They don't owe me a contract. Me, I want it. They don't owe me no gold scholarship. Me, I want it. All right. The only people who I owe something are the masses of people of Guyana. First of all, my village, my race, my country, my region. Boxing, black man and woman, Guyanese man and woman, especially the poor. And Caribbean. And all of that, so proud, so proud. Poke my finger in the eye. All right, tonight is not me. Y'all can tell that a little fired up. I've taken the night off the campaign trail. You know, the campaign is on and the campaign is for votes. And I don't talk this kind of thing on the campaign. But, you poke my finger in the eye. Come here. You, come here. Juke your eye. Because I could do it. Can't do me nothing. Watch me, black and proud. If 10,000 black people in Guyana talk like that, things change tomorrow. But our elites, no, you can't say that. No, you can't. And they're qualified to say it, because nobody can do them nothing. But they tell you it behind the scene. All those of you, everywhere that I go, there's not a meeting that I've spoken at on the campaign that people have not come before, after, and shake me hand. And they ain't saying, Dr. Hines, thanks to APNU, thanks to WP, thanks for what you do for black people. Everywhere I go, young, old, and in between, poke my finger in the eye because you give me the power to do so. You can't do me. They can't do me nothing because I'm covered with the power of the Most High, Rastafari. All right, I think we're ready to rule.
Right.
Jonathan?
After that, you left.
You're breaking up a little. Come a little closer to your instrument.
Yeah.
Good. Nothing that I've said tonight you are responsible for.
Mm-hmm.
You're breaking up. You got to come closer to your instrument.
After that introduction, you have left me with what? You hear me now? Are you hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you better now.
So you left me with almost with a problem as to where to start. But then I think that what we need to do is that we need to have a national discussion on this matter. It is the only outstanding international issue which has got to be resolved. The resurrection or the repair of the African continent and the African people. There are Africans in Guyana, persons whose ancestors came to this country and built this country so that everybody who is benefiting today can benefit from what they're benefiting. But unfortunately, the people who built this country have made it possible for others to benefit. They are being stereotyped, and their contributions to the country is being institutionalized and structured in a negative way. And other people who have come and who have benefited from that which had been done by our ancestors, they are being given the credit for what our ancestors had done. And so that is my opening comment. Really, you have said what has got to be said, so you don't got to pull out the rest by questions.
Brother Jonathan, you listen that calypso, I hope, by Chuck Doss.
Yes, it was.
And as you listen to that calypso, reflect on the message there and its applicability to Guyana and the African diaspora and Africa itself.
Chucky sang about the contribution of African people to scientific, mathematical, and other developments in civilizations, both on the African continent and in this part of the world. You know what is interesting? What is interesting about this, and this, I would like to leave this with the audience tonight. On the 2nd of April, 1810, the governor in Berbice forbade the Africans from speaking themselves in a positive fashion. And that is why Chalky got to come and Chalky got to sing that song to remind us. And then on the 8th of April, 1814, 8th of April, 1814, they banned us from exercising our culture. For instance, uh, referring to our ancestors, they banned us from doing our ancestral feast. Now, that is an integral part of the African consciousness. Stopped us from doing it. In other words, what they were stopping us from doing is connecting to that great contribution that we have to world civilization, because that is what we used, that consciousness of our greatness. That is what we used on the African continent to build what we had to build. That is what we used to survive. That is what we used to survive in the marooned community, which were all destroyed. And so let us look, for instance, at agriculture. I am not absolutely sure that Chalky talked or sang about agriculture, but cattle rearing, agriculture, aquaculture, all of the things that you see the modern society doing, they came from the African continent. He sang about Egypt. Every religion that you have got in the world today, whether it's Christianity, Hinduism, Islam, they came from the Egyptian from North Africa on the African continent. They, one of the persons who moved that civilization from Northern Africa to the rest of the world was the quote unquote Moors. In fact, in Guyana, there is what is called Moruca River. The Moruca River, Moruca. But Professor, the professor, I'm going to remember her name, the professor who taught all of the historians in Guyana, she referred to the Moruca River as the Morocco River.
We're talking about El Segovia?
No, not El Segovia.
Sister Moniz?
Sister Noel Moniz. No,
Yes.
Yes. She referred to Moruca in her book, British Policy Towards the Amerindians. She spoke of Moruca as Morocco, as the province of Morocco. Now, when you look at what a province is it's like an administrative center. So that we are asking ourselves, did the Moroccans, the Moors, did they have an administrative center here in Region 1? And so the question of the contribution of the African people to the development of ancient and modern civilization, including here in Guyana, is beyond question. The issue is the education of people here in Guyana into what Africans have really contributed to the development of it.
And we are listening here to Jonathan Adams. If you're hearing some voices in the background, there is a crusade just outside my studio, which is where I live. And we have to share the space. So if you hear something in the background, it's they have a crusade here. And our guest tonight is Jonathan Adams. His first time on the program, but Jonathan is a well-known name. I said there are about 10 of us, maybe less, maybe a little bit more, 10 of us Africans who have stuck our necks out and we talk about African and African contribution openly. And Jonathan is among those 10 people who speak about African Africans. Somebody was telling me last night, Jonathan, that some of the black elite used to meet in Georgetown about 20 odd years ago, 20, and they decided to invite Ravidev to their hangout. And Ravidev told them the problem with them is that they're afraid to say that they're pro-black, and that he's not afraid to say that he's pro-Indian. And he's saying this to some black intellectuals, black elite. And so the issue of black education has a lot to do with our elite who hide from their blackness, very strong in their blackness, but they don't speak publicly about it. Jonathan, let me ask you this. Are you surprised that every African who dare to speak about Africanness, about black dignity, black invention, black pride, is called a racist? Of course, we know what racism is. We know the definition of racism. Are you surprised that just for saying I am black, I'm proud, and I'm teaching black history, you're called a racist?
Well, they're going to call you a racist because it is one of the things that black people are morbidly afraid of. Black people are morbidly afraid of being called racist. But the issue of being called a racist is a question of pride. If we look around us and we see everybody enjoying the things that make for a decent self-image, and we do not have that. If you look at all of the peoples around us, they have what it takes to have a decent image of self. We don't have that.
Mm-hmm.
We have got to, at some point in time, and this is my position. My position is that Guyana is not at the crossroads. Guyana is resetting itself for its future. Since independence, from independence to now, we have gone through a lot of struggles and we have defined to a certain extent who we are. The inflow of the massive amounts of revenues from the oil industry has created a new society or new opportunities where people are aligning themselves, looking into the future. It is within this particular context that Africans have got to realign themselves, take up the mantle of identifying themselves with themselves, and moving forward in the context of understanding of themselves.
Jonathan, I am so glad that you went there because this realigning at emancipation, which we just celebrated or observe, the 187th anniversary of the emancipation moment in 1838. We independence was another defining moment. And you have said that this coming of oil is another defining moment. And what you are seeing, and I'm putting this to you, and I hope you don't do like my countryman Dudu Sanko. You know, he got caught. Mr. What's your name? Mr. Dudu Sanko. Spell it. He said D-O and two Doku. Um, what is your profession? He said, I'm a mule chauffeur. He used to drive a Ascot, but he had dignity and pride. He said, I'm a mule chauffeur. All right. And you know, they proceed to tell you he park he Ascot wrong. And the liar said, I'm putting it to you, Mr. Sanko, that you were park wrong. He said, you can't put it to me, you've not been there. Right. So I am putting it to you, conscious that I may not have been there. That the political treatment in this election of the African and the African vote is a glimpse of what this realignment could mean for African. The fact that in this election, we're not talking about Indian crossover votes. We're talking about African crossing over to this party and that party and so on. Is that something that as African people we have to see as more than just election gimmickry, but we see it as something deeper in terms of the realignment of the ethnic groups in the political economy of this country?
You see, I think that once again, the African man is being used, and that is something that repeatedly we see happening in our society. Look, Eddie Grant has this position. Eddie Grant usually says only an addict can cure an addict. No doctor could cure an addict, etc. He says only an addict could cure an addict, and this is why he says this. He extends that statement to say only a black man can cure a black man because only a black man understands the problems that black people have. And indeed, it's only we who can understand what we have gone through. Living life without a culture for hundreds of years, we are the only people in this country who have not had the opportunity or the blessing of living a life which is culturally ours. And so in realigning for the future, what we have got to do, and you're going to notice that I'm staying away from pointing my fingers at the elite, because if the elite knows and the ordinary people do not know, then it doesn't serve the knowledge which is there to liberate our people, does not serve the ordinary people. If the ordinary people know and the elite doesn't tell them, then it doesn't matter whether the elite hides the information or not. I have taken the position over the years that what I'm going to do is that I'm going to speak black only, because the black condition is the outstanding issue to be solved or to be resolved in this country. But I do certainly believe that at this particular point in time, when the country is realigning itself for the future, that what we have got to do is that we have got to ensure that this message gets to the ordinary people. And so we bypass the control which the elite has had over the ordinary people.
Jonathan Adams, Africanist, Pan-Africanist, Black nationalist. I am sure he's not afraid to be called all of those things. Someone who has walked the walk. When the reparations movement in the Caribbean picked up speed, Jonathan was a person who was tasked with unearthing the history of the real history of the Africans, because we have African historians who are trained historians and they know the history, but they are historians and they are historians. We are never short of information about our history. And I myself, not a trained historian, you can call me a political historian. I myself, when Jonathan, the kind of work that you did, the kind of research that you did, I myself was educated a lot by that research. And what it taught me was that there is so much more about African history, about Guyanese history, about Amerindian history, about East Indian history, Portuguese, Chinese, and Europeans that we do not know. And that in the process of unearthing the history of any one of those groups, you tend to learn about the other groups. But the Amerindians and the Africans are central to that. The Amerindians, because the books tell us they are the indigenous people, and the Africans, because of the unique experience of enslavement, that the histories of those two groups are so overbearing and overpowering that you cannot tell the story of Guyana, the Caribbean, and the so-called Americas without the experience of those indigenous people and African people. Talk to me.
I think that one of the things, and my work is revisionist, um, because what I found when I did the research, which we were mandated to do to find out, what is the real history. We found out that the first peoples of Guyana, for instance, were not the so-called indigenous people, the Amerindian people. That the first people of the Guyanas were some people from Western Africa, that they were Africans. The Amerindians, they say, came here approximately 12,000 years ago. But the bones that they found of these people from Western Africa dates back, the bones that they found date back to 14,000 years. It therefore means that Black people were here in the Guyanas, Brazil specifically, which is pretty close to us. At that particular point in time, we didn't have national boundaries. We just had the Guyanas, what is today called French Guyana, um, etc. Um, so that is the first point that I would like to make about that we need to revise the history. First of all, as a nation, we have to examine for ourselves whether what Professor Neves had found in in Brazil, whether that was the case that applied throughout all of all of the Guyana Shield. Then the second issue that we have got to deal with in terms of African Amerindian relationships and the establishment of Guyana is the role that the Amerindians played in continuing the process of slavery. You see, if the Amerindians did not police the forests and bring back the runaways, that institution of enslavement would not have survived as long as it had survived. A second role that they played was that they were instrumental In putting down the 1763 rebellion, the colonial government had a mobilization. They used to move these Caribs from Region 1. They had a system whereby they can move the Caribs from Region 1 to any part of the country to put down any rebellion. And so that has got to be taken into consideration. The 1823 rebellion, they were instructive also to in putting down that rebellion. In fact, Kwamina was shot by an Amerindian. His name was Chatau. His name was Chatau at the back of Success. And then they fetched his body and brought it out. And so there has got to be a national reconciliation between the Africans and the Amerindians, because they have played a role. They have played a role in the demeaning of the African man. One of the other things too that we have got to take into consideration in the demeaning of the African and the role of the Amerindians in the demeaning of the Africans is that at one time, and I am putting this one to the audience because we see that behavior still in our society, where there was the national sport, there was sport, whereby they would go out and they would hunt Africans. Think young African men resemble that practice of hunting Africans at that particular point in time. And Amerindians have been at the center, forefront of these historical atrocities, which have been institutionalized in Guyana, and which we need a national sit down and a discussion. So it is not only the parading of Amerindian faces on the national ticket that is sufficient. After that is done, we have got to sit down and we have got to discuss issues. And like in South Africa, where they had the national reconciliation and everybody spoke their truths, and there was a reconciliation. I think that in going forward, and needs that ethnic discussion so that we can reconciliate with one another in a true, honest, honest.
Jonathan Adams here tonight talking some truth. Someone cited as invariably they must. The book by our countryman, They Came Before Columbus, as
Yes.
being a seminal text in this conversation of inhabiting the Americas, in which our brother argued that before Columbus discovered the Caribbean, Africans were here. Your comments on that seminal text?
You know, Doc, I think it is, yes, Ivan Van Sertima, who pointed out that Columbus wrote in his diaries that when he came here, he saw these he saw these tall black men among the Amerindians in Mexico, in Latin America. In fact, there are stone heads in Latin America of, I mean, them guys look just like me. They got nose like me, they got lip like me, they got fur like me. The only difference is that they got locks. Me got no hair on my head. But these guys have locks. Now, the only people who could have carved that is either people who saw this kind of people in the Yucatan Peninsula, or they either saw them or these people came there and carved those stones, carved those stones themselves. So that Ivan Van Sertima's contribution to the seminal understanding of who were the first people here. I'm going to share one little other bit of information. Columbus wrote in his diaries also too that whilst he was sailing coming down here, he saw Africans sailing going back to Africa in their ship. There is a tide which comes from off of the African continent. And once you hit that tide, once you get onto that tide, all you did was put up your oars inside of the boat, and that tide would bring you straight down to Southern America. And so that is what they used, and they obviously knew how to get back to Africa. And so the development, I mean, we cannot underestimate the development that African people have made to the development of science, technology, not only of Africa, but of the modern world. The reason why it is taken for granted, Doc, because people do not know about it. And what I would like to urge you to do tonight, for us not to wait on anyone, because all of the information is available, for us to establish, you know, Brother UC had a school in Buxton. For us to
I live not too far from it.
right, for us to establish
Yes.
a forum where we can teach our young people, their history and their contribution to not only Guyanese history, but world history. Let us take that responsibility and let us not leave it in anybody's hands. It is not anybody else's business. It is our business. Let us do what is our business.
Brother Jonathan Adams throwing out a challenge here tonight, and I can tell Brother Jonathan, without carrying tales out of school, that that school is very, very high on my agenda. Very, very high on my agenda. It is overdue. It is important. The kind of information and the kind of knowledge that people like yourself have, that we ought to now put it in a structured way and get it into the minds of our Black people, but also all Guyanese, because this information is not just important for Black people. I see the anti-Black racism that has taken shape over the last couple of years. The vile names that are called, that Black people are being called in Guyana. You and I grew up and we heard those things, but they used to be whispered. Now they are out in the open. And I don't go after the people who are out there doing it. It's partly out of ignorance, partly out of socialization, and partly out of the timidity of Black organizations, Black elites, Black institutions in terms of advancing in a bold way the African story. We live in a multi-ethnic society. We cannot get away from that. The objective of governance is to govern for all. The objective of education is to educate all about all. The objective of ensuring ethnic peace and ethnic collaboration is for each ethnic group to educate itself first and foremost of its own existence. And so we are talking, Brother Jonathan, of a multifaceted approach. And that sometimes we think that the government must do everything, or the elites must do everything, and not recognizing that there are things that we as Black people have to do for ourselves. I have to cite again Marcus Messiah Garvey, who I know that you are familiar with his work, and that he has a template of Black self-organization. And so I agree with you completely that there is need for a Black introspection in order to tackle a lot of the manifestations and consequences of that breach in the Black community. So rather than concentrate on the consequences of the Black condition, is really to look at the root of the Black condition and try to uproot those roots and replace them with the kind of roots that give our people the confidence to believe that they are worth more than they're taught they are worth. Any comments?
But I believe what you're saying, and I agree with you 100% that what we have got to do is that we have got to uproot the stereotypes that have been fed to our people. Because our people, the thing about it is that our people have begun to believe those stereotypes. I had an argument with a man at the Wisma, the Mackenzie Market, at the Mackenzie Market a couple of months ago. First of all, I heard him saying, me ain't got no time with children. I says, what really hearing? He ain't got no time with the children. So I go and I sit down now to listen to him, to listen to this conversation. Because any man who sits down proudly in the public and say he ain't got time with children, this is his choice. This is not circumstance. He's choosing to ignore the well-being of his children. That's why I want to hear when next gonna come out to this mind, which is saying that he ain't got no time with children. And then the next thing he said, but no, I want them white man to come back and run this country. Because the queen understand how to run this country. Say, oh gosh, this got to be a mindset. So I go up to him and I said to him, you're a slave. And he take off on me and I said, man, you're a slave. The point that I am making is that if he grounded in his African self, first of all, he would never be saying that he doesn't have that. And secondly, he would never be saying if he understands the role that he has played, or African people have played in building Guyana, he would never be saying that he wants the European man to come back.
Yeah.
When you got Forbes Burnham, and I'm pushing this in because one of my things is that I do not understand a country which cannot give Forbes Burnham the recognition that he deserves. You said that he used to rig elections. But in 1992, what did Carter advise Mr. Hoyt? He advised Mr. Hoyt that he could call off the elections because of the amount of irregularities that he saw. And then in 2020, again in 2020, we found ballot boxes that had ballots inside there with no supporting documents, etc. So that what we have got is tangible evidence of a people who have accused Mr. Burnham of being a rigger. We have tangible evidence of their rigging of national elections.
Brother Jonathan Adams here, making a plea for the recognition of the contribution of Forbes Burnham to the modern political history of this country. And I rather suspect that Jonathan is saying that the lack of recognition of Forbes Burnham is grounded in an anti-African, anti-Black, popular consciousness that is growing in this country. That if you were born in 1992, you are today 33 years old. You are unaware of Forbes Burnham because the education system does not teach you about Forbes Burnham. If yesterday we observe 40 years of the after the death of Foxburn. If you are born in 1985, you are unaware in a tangible way about the contributions of Fox Burnham. And you at 40, you have children who are teenagers who are unaware. So you have households in a family that are unaware of Fox Burnham. And here is the thing, our East Indian brothers and sisters do not have to depend on the national education system to teach about Chedi Jagan because they have a formal and informal education system that is tied up to their religions, that is tied up to their politics. And so it is easy for them to learn of their heroes of the past. We, for the most part, Africans, we are part of the Christian church, and the Christian church does not see its responsibility as teaching African people about their history and their culture. We have a national education system that doesn't do it. And so, therefore, Africans have to find alternative ways and means of doing so. And it's not just Forbes Burnham. Iyusi Kwena just celebrated his 100th anniversary. And it, for a brief moment, African Guyanese learned of this person. Do we have institutions in which to take that moment forward? No. It's Walter Rodney. It's Martin Carter. And we can go on and on and on. I spoke last night at a public meeting in Plaisance. And I talked about Eddie Grant. And most of the audience knew of Eddie. And then I said, my generation knows of Rex Collymore, a national cricketer from Plaisance. Very few people know. And so you are correct. It is, we have to create or recreate our institutions in order to carry forward the work. You have talked about elections and rigging and so on. Tie up for us, Jonathan. And you've already said that the realignment of Guyana and the place of the African is critical in what's going on in the present. What's the stake of Africans in these elections?
What's at stake? Ask the question. I didn't hear the last part. What is at stake for
What
us?
is at stake for Africans in these 2025 elections?
Our decency. Our decency. If we let this moment pass, I mean, African people today, or let's put it this way. Dr. Chedi Jagan said, "That's why black people always at the bottom of the ladder." He was saying that because, in part, because of an observation. When you look at the society today, you see, for instance, Chinese, you see Indian businesses, you see Portuguese business, you see white business. But when you look for black business, what you see is blacks in a most rowdy fashion, in the public transportation, driving minibuses. You see blacks selling bread, etc. At the side. We do not have a stake in the national economy. We do not have a stake in the national economy like other people. And so what we have got to do is that we have got to position ourselves so that we have the power so that have the power to change the distribution of resources in this country in an equitable fashion. And note, I am not saying equal, I'm saying equitable, because for 200 years we worked for free. And then when we were supposed to get a free wage, indentureship came. And then after indentureship, we had the colonial period. And then we had all kinds of story. And then we had the ERP, which I think was one of the most destructive things to African well-being. And so what Africans need is power, whether it is political power or social power. But we have got to get power so that we could equitably lay our hands on the resources of this country, so that we can correct for the damage that has been done to us economically over the hundreds of years that we have been here.
Jonathan, there are two global movements that are at play as we speak. One of the movements I know you're integrally involved with, and that is the reparation movement. And the second movement is the one that's initiated by the United Nations that designated one decade and has designated a second decade of
Mhm.
the people of African descent. Um, those are two very important developments as far as the African cause is concerned. Are you satisfied that those two movements have taken enough root in a place like Guyana, and have we made the kind of headway that we should make, drawing off of those two movements, those two global movements?
Well, certainly we have not made, and I'll use a story to explain what is it that is taking place. When the Permanent Forum for People of African Descent, had its first meeting in Switzerland, I was there. Now, some people had organized, some attendees at the conference had organized a side event, you know, you just have the main conference, and then in the evenings you just have different interest groups having their conferences. So there was one particular group which had organized a meeting, and the issue at hand was the derailing of the Durban Declaration, which was the report from the 2002 racism conference in Southern Africa. That is the blueprint for the repair of the entire African society internationally. And well, when I say internationally, I'm also talking about on the continent. So here's it, we were discussing and everybody was sharing their opinions. And then the South African government official who was at the conference, he got up and he said, let me tell you all what is going on. And he said, listen, whenever anything happens in this country, and I'm sharing this with people so that they can understand a part of the international political system. Whenever anything happens in this world and Israel does not like it, they shout anti-Semitism. And once they say anti-Semite, America and the whole of Europe fall in line. Now that in itself, the fact that the Israelis are not in agreement with what is written in the Durban Declaration, and their attribution to it of being anti-Semite has conditioned Europe to respond in the fashion that they respond. And that is the reason why the whole reparations movement and the process in the United Nations is facing the problems that it is facing. But this is what I'm going to say. We are a people who built civilizations. This modern civilization is built off of our ideas, our science, our politics, etc. And nothing is going to stop us from rebuilding a civilization which we are comfortable with, even in this modern world. And here in Guyana, it is going to be the same.
Jonathan Adams here tonight. We're talking Black people business, African people's business, and of course we must do that. And as I said at the beginning of this program, that there may be about 10 of us who are part of the Black movement that dare to say some things in public, dare to say we are Black, Black is beautiful, and to talk about Black history. For that we are called racist. Of course, the people who do so are as ignorant as they come. Part of it is faked ignorance because some of them know better. Part of it is ignorance. They just don't know. But as I said at the beginning of the program, I enjoy poking my finger in the eye. I just enjoy. If they don't want me to say Black is beautiful, I say Black is extremely beautiful.
Say that again, Doc. Say that again.
If they don't like me to say Black is beautiful, I say Black is extremely beautiful. Jonathan, I take joy in poking my fingers in their eyes because I say that I have earned the right to do so and that I am empowered by African people to do so. And the more I do that, the more they cry and they beg. And the more they cry and they beg, and the louder they call me racist, the more I say, is a Black man invented that. The air conditioner is a Black man invented that. But it's true. It is true.
Doc.
Yes.
Perfumed air conditioning. Not only air conditioning, perfumed air conditioning.
There you go.
And you continue, Doc.
There you go. And we live in a country in which people are saying they love Black people, you don't love Black people, and the person or persons who are teaching Black people consciousness, they hate them. How can you love Black people and hate the people who are trying to make them equal and equitable in a country of ethnic? But I love to poke my finger in your eye. I'm a racist? Yes, I am a racist for justice. I'm a racist for peace. I'm a racist for African dignity. Poke my finger in your eye. Jonathan, I know that you get a political bone in you. Which of the contesting parties are best located to address the African question? Note, I'm not saying which party can do something for Black people, because political party is a particular animal. You and I know that. But as we look at the political parties or political groups that are in this election, and if you were to speak to our people as African people, which of those parties, which of those groups you would say stand the best chance of addressing or giving a look in to African issues?
I start by saying which is not.
All right.
And one that is most not is the PPP. Because the PPP has got a history. You see, it is not supposition. It is what their history shows. One of the things that concerned me in my reading was that every time there was a national movement in this country in which Indians and blacks started out together, it turned out that Indians ended up fighting against the blacks. And the most significant was 1964. 1964, when black people died, and then we saw that in 1992. In short, what I'm saying is that whenever Indians rule this country, black people die. And so based on that observation, I cannot support PPP to look after black people's affairs. The other major party in this race is the Win. If one looks at the following that Win has got, one questions the capacity, not only the following, but the articulation, of the leader. One doesn't see an understanding of the political necessities of this nation, and so it leaves me to say that the organization, the group, the party that is best suited is the APNU. But this is what I'm going to say. You started out in the early parts of your discussion. You said that, well, look, we got a problem in this country. And it is that the black elites, they don't want to talk about this particular issue. And so even though the APNU is best suited, is best positioned to represent the black cause, what I am advocating is for the black people to understand what is necessary for them to move forward, and for them to organize themselves so that that elite can take note of their needs and not use them to achieve their own elite purposes only. And so what I'm advocating is a raising of the consciousness of the masses of African people to understand that they are best suited to represent themselves. You see, the elite in this country, the African elite in this country, they're trained in the European universities. So if they're trained in the universities, how on earth do you expect them to represent the man from Albistown? How on earth do you expect them to represent the man from Plaisance and Buxton, Bagdam, etc.? And so this is what I'm saying. Long time gone, short time there. We late. We have got to take this responsibility to go amongst our people, to ground with our brothers, like Walter Rodney used to say, to ground with our brothers and teach our brothers the information that they need to make themselves a dignified people. Look, when slavery was over and our ancestors walked off of the plantation and they bought those estates, they walked off of the sugar plantation and they bought the estates. The ones who bought Victoria, they wrote a constitution to regulate their behavior. And one of the things that they wrote in that constitution is that, listen, we have got to be of the highest order in terms of our behavior. Today, our people don't give a damn. They do exactly what they feel like doing. And that is because nobody is grounding them in their history. The the example of our ancestors who worked off of those plantations and went and bought those estates. In 12 years, they spent $1.25 million in buying estates. When you take $1.25 million in 18 between 1848 and 1850, when you take that $1.25 million and you adjust it for interest, etc., and you bring it into modern day dollars, you're looking at approximately $1.3 trillion. So if you want to understand what our ancestors were involved in, you got to look at the latest budget in Guyana.
Exactly.
All them roads that building and all them bridges that building and everything, and understand that we did that. We did it in this country. So we ain't gotta wait for no government. If them banner could have walked off the plantation, with hundreds of years they worked for no pay, and do that within 12 years, I am arguing that we have a power that we are not using. And that power is to copy, simply just copy what our ancestors did. Just copy what our ancestors did. But first of all, we gotta know what our ancestors
There
did.
you go. There you go, my brother.
So I'm putting it back to you again. After tonight, after this program, for me, it's not about talking. It's about when we gonna meet to have the first discussion with our people.
With our people, brother Jonathan tracked me down until he found me. And of course, I'm not tearing tales at school. He said he liked what I've been doing and he want to be part of it. And we decided the first thing is you come on to the program. Let us call it, what is the one Freddie Kizunda said? David Hines, racial sermons. Racial, he don't know, he don't know he don't know the credit he giving me because we've always had to preach racial sermons. And then, Brother Jonathan, you're quite right. We've got to sit down and we've got to put things in place. The elections are here. We've got to see these elections through because the vote determines who governs, and who governs determines who gets what, where, how, and when. And of course, whatever happens after these elections will determine what happens in this country at the level of governance and the level of the macro political economy for the next 2 or 3 generations. But as always with the Africans, whether it is sun, rain, or dew, we work to do. So we have to operate at various levels at the same time. And that is why we could be talking politics and slip into psychology. And we could be talking psychology and slip into history. And then we slip in, as we're talking about history, slip into some jazz and some reggae and some calypso and some high life. Jonathan, why are ordinary Guyanese? They may not have a lot of consciousness of African Guyanese history, but they're in love with this man in Burkina Faso. It's one of the things that amaze me. Them little boy and little girl, that times, come. Listen what this man Abraham said. A chap pulled me at Pleasance last night. He said, I come here specially to see you in person, to tell you something. He pulled me one side and he whispered in my ears. He said, use the Guyanese Abraham. That is what I come here to tell you. And he shake me hand and he gone. Why people here in Guyana and the rest of the African diaspora are into this guy, Abraham?
He's not only a soldier, but he's an academic. He he studied. He studied whatever he's doing. But what is most important is that if you look at his program, what you see him doing is using African culture. Like, for instance, the putting of those criminals, quote unquote criminals, the bad behaved people, to work on farms and not in jails is a repeat of an old African institution where Africa did not have jails. The European man got to Europe and introduced the concept of jails. If you misbehave, you were removed from your home and you were put into a home where you were disciplined. We not nothing like jail. If you kill somebody, then they're gonna kill you back. So part of his security detail is not only the physical security, but also to the spiritual security. And whether we like it or not, there is a connection between us spiritually and our ancestral past. That's the reason why we like Bob Marley music. Because what Bob Marley does is that he connects us with a spiritual vibe that was flowing at that particular point in time. I think what also too is what is capturing the imagination of the young people is the fact that he himself is a young man. I don't think he is 35 years of age. But it is not only that he is 35 years of age, it is the wisdom that rests in this young man. And again, this is not anything strange for the African continent. The African continent has seen pharaohs as young as 9 years old. So that by that standard, Traore is a big old man. You see the peculiarity of the African man, the gifts that the African man and woman possess, man and woman that they possess, puts them in a position where they are capable of doing all kinds of things. I'll wrap this up by saying this, and we're answering this question: what is it that is attracting these people? Africans have built pyramids throughout the world. The modern scientific nations have tried to rebuild what those ancient, ignorant people built, but they have failed and have not been able to do so. It simply means this. It means that our ancestors have a knowledge from way back then, which the modern civilization did not possess. Our business is to join ourselves back to that advanced culture so that we could beat this trap that they have put us in. You see, the reason why we're trapped is because we have been taken off of the rail that we were running on. We come from a rail where we used to talk to we grandfather, and we used to talk to we grandmother. We used to talk to we great grandmother and we great grandfather, and they tell we no. Stop talking to your grandmother and your great grandfather, etc., and talk to pastor.
Yeah. Oh, Brother Jonathan Adams here tonight, Pan-Africanist, Black nationalist, teacher, historian, folklorist, and the man who used to have one of the most popular television programs in the early days, Black Forum, always standing. Chuck does say, I stand on one side of the fence, brother. I stand for Black Power. My brother Jonathan, thank you so much for coming through at very short notice. As my Trini partners did say, we have to make this a regular occurrence, right? And come through. And the audience has always been saying to me, Dr. Hines, you have to set aside at least 2 programs to deal with African issues, African history. And I've not always kept my discipline when it comes to that because of the demands. But we'll make this a regular occurrence. Thank you, my brother.
It has got to be. And I want to share this last thing for the benefit of the Guyanese public. And I think it was in 1995 when the PPP government took away free education.
Yes.
Students of Guyana fought a tremendous battle to have it. We lost the battle, but we have finally won the war.
There you go. We have finally won the war because free education from North University, the brainchild of Forbes, Lyndon Forbes Sampson Burnham, they took it away, but eventually we have won the war. Thank you very much, my brother.
Thank you.
And to you, the audience, tonight we had a full program. I got a night off from the campaign trail. I would like to thank all the people of Victoria, the people of Golden Grove, Nabaklis, Beirut, Buxton, Pleasance, Annandale. Those places I've had the opportunity to speak and to mingle with the people of those villages. The other night I was at Prospect on the East Bank. So wonderful to meet up with people, to chat with you, to try to urge you to vote and to vote right for the APNU. Really, it's an honor to meet people in person. And I am overjoyed, overwhelmed that so many of you have come up to me to say personally thanks. And I have said thanks to you personally. I want to say publicly thanks. I cannot do this. We cannot do this without you. To the people of Linden, where Jonathan is, I think we are coming there this weekend. Hopefully, I'll get a chance to rub some flesh with the people of Linden. I've not been there in a minute, as the young people would say, but we are coming there this weekend, and I will be there. The people on the west side, we are coming to Perfect Harmony next week. We are also going to be at Den Amstel next week. I think we might be at IFLOC, Astortville, Cashboy area there. But we'll be on the west side next week. Linden this weekend. I've not had a chance to come to West Bobbies, but hopefully I will be there before the campaign is over. Again, thank you all. Those of you who've been making your contribution to the WPA campaign fund, please continue to do so. We have been receiving your donations, and those donations are being put to work in a most positive way. The people of Atlanta, I'll be in Atlanta sometime in the following week, I think a week from now. And those of you in New York, I will also be passing through New York. I think there are 2 public activities there. I will get the details for those activities and share. But in another week or so, we will be in Atlanta and Brooklyn. So hope to see you all there. Those of you who want to bring your donations in person, please do take the opportunity. But we'll be in Atlanta. I don't have the next week. I'm going to let you know what date, but I know it's in another week or so. And then Brooklyn. I will be passing through there at that fundraiser that they are having there. For those of you who are in Washington, D.C. and would like to contribute to our campaign, would like to contribute to the WPA campaign, I'll get some information as to where you can drop off your donations. I am putting the Heinz, well, I'm not putting them, the Heinz clan in Washington, D.C., Maryland, have decided to constitute themselves into a sort of David Heinz WPA support group. And I'm grateful to them. I'm grateful to them. So Linden this weekend, West Side next week, and Atlanta and Brooklyn, I think next weekend. Tomorrow night, I think I have to travel far. Tomorrow night, I think we are in Mahaika. So I would not be able to stitch in a show tomorrow night before scampering off to Mahaika, because that's a good way from Buxton. So you're not going to see me tomorrow night unless something changes, but I'll be back here on Monday. Monday, of course, we are in Denamstel. Denamstel on the west side next week, Monday. On Wednesday, we are at Parfit Harmony on the west side. And as I said, I think we are likely to be in Stroudville, Iflod, but I'll let you know. But definitely Monday in Denamstel next week, Wednesday in Parfit Harmony. On the weekend, Atlanta, Brooklyn, and of course, this weekend, all roads lead to Linden. And I'll be there. I love you all. I love you all. We are in this together. And we shall overcome, because we have overcome before, and we're going to do it again. Remember, all those who said we must not talk about black, we must not say black is beautiful, we must not talk about black invention, poke your finger, your black finger in the eyes as I do. As I do. If they say they don't want me to say black is beautiful, I say black is extremely beautiful. And we keep moving on, because we know we are for racial equality. We are not for racial domination, as the PPP's policies are, and as their enablers are pushing for a domination of black people. I don't know how much they paid when they went to Africa, but these here are willing to pay a couple $1 million to our young people. They're willing to pay a $5,000. They're willing to pay $50,000, all kind of money. The same kind of tactic that was used when they forcibly hauled our people from Africa and bring them here. But never is going to happen. We're going to fight. Until the ignoble and unhappy regime that hold our people in Guyana in bondage, there shall be no rest. There shall be no rest. See you all next week.